Good afternoon. My name is Mackenzie Moffett, and today I will be analyzing the result, How Public Schools Limit Free Thought. Now, this led me to my claim that schools do not uphold students' First Amendment rights due to their obstructions on freedom. Now, my claim ties in with the given resolve due to the education system demonstrating continuously that it is not teaching its students to think critically or empirically, causing students to either lose their ability to think critically or creatively, or feel out of place should they express it. Now, this prevents freedom of speech with oppressive ways of teaching the youth. So, to understand my stance on the given resolve, we must first understand the first case that triggered this initial heated debate, which will bring us to the case of Tinker v. Des Moines. Now, this controversy began when 3 students resolved to wear black armbands to protest the Vietnam War. The school got wind of this, and the school decided to end anyone with wearing black armbands in suspension. Now, these children relentlessly persisted with wearing their black armbands, and it ended as anyone would think. They got suspended. Now, these children rallied their parents to bring their case up to a higher court where it would eventually make its way to the Supreme Court. It was then ruled that the students' rights were upheld, albeit in a very broad manner. Now, the reason this case even came to fruition lies within America's factory model of education, which spurs my initial claim that schools don't uphold the right of freedom of speech due to their obstruction of creative thought. Now, this leads us into our industrial education system. So our industrial education system has seldom changed since the 19th century / early 20th century, and it was made to cater to the greatest generation, which were the people born in the 1920s. Now, this came about during the factory model of education, during the factory era or industrial era, when many parents were leaving off to work in the factories, leaving their children at home. Now, in order to adapt and acclimate their children to this new way of life, parents had to get to thinking, how are we going to get our children used to this new way, since before the factory model of education, there was no real education system that was taken forth in America. So the solution was to assemble masses of children under one authoritarian figure, the teacher, and teach them the ways of this new world. The new ways of this world including marching from place to place, a bell signifying when they may leave and when they may not, assigned seating, and teacher being the ultimate authoritarian with no rule for change. So this leads us into uniforms mentality, which is essentially the school's teaching curriculum, how they desire to teach it regardless of the factual evidence pertaining to it. Now this can be seen throughout for example, when a student has a way to solve a math problem in a different way, and his teacher says, no, you must only learn it this way. And if you see with my visual right here, you'll see that the teacher thinks square, therefore the children must think square, leaving no room for new innovative outlooks. So the factory system that was placed forth is teaching children uniform mentality to be sheep, essentially, slowly ebbing away pupils' abilities to exercise the freedom of speech. And this leads to the undeniable truth today that schools were never designed to help children exercise freedom of thought, that in reality they were teaching them to be sheep and mindless workers ready to take orders without protest. Now, in some cases, freedom of speech may be lewd or indecent, which brings us to what others may say. And many people will say that freedom of speech shouldn't be used due to it being a catalyst for inappropriate behaviors, such as behaviors that indicate violence or lewd activity upon other students. And a main argument or case that could be used for this is Bethel versus Fraser. And in this case, a student nominated his fellow friends for an SGA position with a speech that was littered with sexual innuendos. The school took what they thought was proper action upon it, suspending him, and the student took it up with the Supreme Court. It was there specifically declared that the school did not violate any constitutional rights due to the speech being lewd and indecent, specifically with an emphasis on lewd or indecent. However, schools often use this case to provide jurisdiction over freedom of speech, even though the hearing or the ruling was clear and concise to allow students to maintain as much of their freedom of speech as possible. The implications of what I've just said lead to lead to the government has never cared about the students rather than keeping the economy afloat and keeping herd mentality afloat. And the conclusion this would lead us to is the government obstructs freedom of thought because they fear what may arise should they teach creative thought. Thank you. What questions do you have?
Two questions I have for you. First up, how valid and reliable were the sources that you used?
Well, I put all my sources through the Pace and Raymond test,
Keep going.
proving reliability time after time, as well as nation-past Supreme Court cases, which we take as facts to this very day.